Welcome to the Academic Woman Amplified podcast. I'm your host, Kathy Mazak, tenured full professor, mom of three, and firm believer that the culture of academia needs to change radically. Women are revolutionizing academia within institutions that were not built for us. If you're ready to reject the culture of overwork, kick guilt and overwhelm to the curb, and amplify your voice to make a real impact on your field without breaking down or burning out, you're in the right place. In the summer season of the podcast, we're busting the myth of the quote-unquote traditional path through academia by featuring the life stories of diverse academic women who have created success for themselves on their terms. Get ready to get inspired. Let's go. Today, I am so excited to introduce you to Dr. Jane Jones. Jane has a PhD in sociology, and she got the golden ticket, the tenure track job. But while she was on the tenure track job, some things happened that made her take her exit from academia. Now Jane runs a thriving writing coaching business. Yes, she's a writing coach like I am for academics, and she specializes in helping academics write their books. Get ready, because Jane's story is one that anybody who has ever been in a position on the tenure track and gone, really? Is this what I really want to do? Because the way you all are acting is not like, you're not all the people I want to hang out with. If you've ever had that feeling, you're going to want to hear how Jane decided, what she decided to do in that situation. It is an inspiring story. And I will say, if you're listening in the car with little ones or someplace where little ones are listening, we use grown-up language in this episode. So just to be aware ahead of time, please enjoy this episode about the amazing life of Jane Jones. All right, I'm so excited. Yay. Will you introduce yourself by telling us your name, your pronouns, your field of study, and what you do now?
Sure. My name is Jane Jones. My pronouns are she and her. My training is in sociology, so I have a PhD in sociology, and I am a writing coach who specializes with book writers.
Amazing. A colleague writing coach on my podcast. I'm so excited. Yay. I can't wait to dig into your story. So let's just start at the beginning and tell me a little bit about what you were like when you were a kid.
Oh my goodness. I was an only child. Mm-hmm. I still am an only child. And I love to read. So I was always reading. I always had my nose buried in a book. And that was kind of my reward. My grandmother would take me out on the weekends. You could pick something. And sometimes it would be a toy, but mostly it would be a book. Nice. And, I spent a lot of time doing typical, in air quotes, like nerdy stuff. Like I did high school debate, I played the violin, and all of this kind of got me ready for college, I suppose, where there was a high emphasis on things that I had already liked doing. So at that point, do you want more kid stuff?
No, that's good. But I do want to know, you were nerdy. Mm-hmm. So did you always know you would go to college, or was there a moment when you were like, oh, I think I better go to college? Or what was the process of?
I always knew I would go to college, and my mother was definitely like, what else would you ever do with your life besides go to college? She grew up pretty working class. She did not go to college. And for her, it was very important that her daughter went to college. Mm-hmm. So that was never, ever a question. Of course you're going to college. You go into the best college you get into, and we will figure it out. So nice. At that point, in high school, I took a sociology class, and I was like, this is really cool. This is really interesting. I didn't love the class in high school, but I love the topic. So I was like, this is really cool. And when I go to college, I think I want to, figure more out about this. Yeah. So when I started college, I was like, oh, I should be a sociology major. I didn't know a lot about majors.
Right. No,
I thought that
does, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I know. No one knows about majors. You're like, oh, I'll major in something. Like and I thought initially that I would go be like a lawyer, like
Right.
something that seemed, I guess, obvious, right? Like,
Hmm.
oh, this is like a prestigious job, so I should
Right.
do it, that kind of
Hmm.
thing.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's what I'll do. But I didn't go to a college that had pre-law programs. Like there were no pre-professional programs.
Okay.
So I was like, well, sociology seems cool. And that's like good training, as my, counselor
Hmm.
advisor told me, like, oh, this is great for law school. You learn how to write and this and that.
Yeah.
So in college, we were in sociology courses and grad students were in them with us. So you got a lot of exposure to just like a high level of debate and discussion. And I was like, this is cool. People get to do this all the time. And
Yeah.
that's when I was like, let me think about grad school, like
Hmm.
PhD grad school, not law
Hmm.
school grad school. Because I
Yeah.
was like, this sounds really amazing that you can just sit around, sit around.
Right.
I thought at the time, as like a 19-year-old, I'm like, you could just sit around all day and talk about ideas. And that sounds so fun. And I want to do that too, because I love ideas.
Yes. Yeah,
So
totally.
going through college, that was kind of my plan, was to go to grad school and get a PhD and then be a professor.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, that sounds like a great plan. And looking back on, optimistic Jane, who was like, oh, I'll just do it. It'll be great. I'm like, okay.
Did you go like straight? Like, did you go undergrad and found a
I took
PhD
1 year
program?
off.
Hmm.
So I took 1 year off because I wanted to feel like I really wanted to do it.
Oh, yeah.
And when I was finishing college, I was like, I just feel like I should work for a year. Like I knew that I would have to pay for part of grad school myself.
Hmm.
I didn't have anyone who would be able to really help me a ton. So
Right.
I was like, I should take a year off and work and figure things out and then apply.
Hmm.
And that just seemed very logical to me. So I moved home and I worked, and I didn't work in anything related to my field. I worked in the mall for a
Hmm.
year
Hmm.
and I started applying to graduate schools. And I got into NYU and I was like, well, I'll go to NYU. I'm from New Jersey.
Hmm.
It's not far. Like I
Right.
didn't have a lot of mentorship around like what's the best program,
Right.
who do you want to work with? Like I just didn't have that mentorship. People didn't give it to me in college.
Hmm.
Like the faculty didn't give it to me in college. I went to University of Chicago. And I didn't get that type of advice around like how to apply to grad school and what to do.
I feel a little bit surprised, maybe some audience members do, that University of Chicago wasn't talking about you going to grad school. Like in my bubble idea of what University of Chicago is, it seems like they would be wanting their grads to, especially in sociology, to like go on.
I mean, you would think so. And they didn't.
Yeah.
So at the time, I didn't even know what I should be advocating for myself. Like I
Right.
didn't know what I should be asking. And it's not to say I got no advice. Like I got some guidance. I was an RA for, my advisor, like a research
Mhm.
assistant. And I did get some advice, but I did not get the level of like, these are the schools you should go to based on your
Right.
interest, or like the more granular things you actually need to know to apply.
Right.
So I had ideas, and there were people I knew of because I was sociology undergrad. So of course I,
Mhm.
read books and
Yeah.
stuff. So I was like, there are professors I know of who would be
Right.
good to work with. But, like, I don't think that's particularly surprising that a Black woman who's a first generation undergraduate student wouldn't get concerted mentoring around how to apply to grad school. Like, I don't think that's surprising at all.
No, that's not surprising. And also like that, those fine grained things, right? Like the importance of like you choosing a school based on who's there because you want to work with that person and all those kind of, it's like secrets. It's like secrets. So yeah, it's not surprising that they were kept from you.
Yeah, it's totally
Yeah.
like all a big secret. So when I applied to grad school, I applied pretty conservatively because again, like I didn't know.
Right.
I did know that when I got a faculty job that, when I got one, because I was like, of course I'll get one. But when I was applying for grad school, I was of the, and not wrong idea of like when you get a faculty job, like you have no choice where you go. So at least for grad school, I should go like to a region that I want to be in. And I really wanted to be close to home. I had went far away for college. I went to Chicago. I'm from New Jersey. And I'm like, I want to stay closer. So I went to NYU and I got my PhD there. And I finished in 2010. And I did get a tenure track job. And I had it for 3 years and I hated it.
So I want to like dig into a couple of things. One is this belief you held, right? About like, well, whatever job I get, I'm going to have to take. I mean, I don't know. Like, yes, I understand. Like, and the kind of like whole thing around the market's flooded and all of that stuff. But it's so defeatist, right?
It's so defeatist. And, as I moved through grad school, I realized that like there were some places where I was just unwilling to go.
Yeah.
Certain parts of the country for me. And then, having some health issues, I was like, I can't go to like these tiny small town places. So I need to be a little bit more strategic in where I apply, even if that limits my range of opportunities. And that's okay. And I got some concerned curiosity, we'll say, about that. Like, oh, don't you want to apply to this other place? Oh, well, this place has a job. Like, why would you apply for that job? You should at least apply. And I'm like, well, why would I apply if I'm never going to take it? Like, I'm just not going to go there. Like, I'm a single Black woman and I don't feel comfortable going anywhere.
Right.
So, navigating that while being on the job market and kind of having to explain to people, I'm not applying there.
Right.
Or I'm not doing that. Yeah. And my advisor was super supportive. So that was fine. So figuring all of that out. And I did get a job, where I was able to live in a city. I wasn't super far away from New Jersey, which was nice. I was in Philadelphia. So, that did work out. Yeah. And I say surprisingly, just because structurally it's so hard to get jobs.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. 100%. Yeah.
So it was kind of like, go to grad school, get the job. I got the job the first year I was on the market.
So you lived the dream. That was the dream.
Yeah, right? Kind of.
Yeah. So what happened then?
The dream turned into a nightmare. No, I'm just kidding.
Dun, dun, dun. Cue the sound effects.
Exactly. Cue scary music. I taught at a small liberal arts college outside of Philadelphia. And I was there for 3 years and I lived in Philadelphia and commuted. So I did, like a reverse commute every morning. And it was just a strange place. It was, I had a lot of naive stereotypes about what academic campuses should be like in terms of their level of like tolerance and liberal politics. Coming from a place like NYU where there is a lot of, it's a more cosmopolitan institution.
Yeah.
Going to a small college in a small town was a very big culture shock for me. Like I had never lived in a tiny, undiverse town. Like I grew up in a very diverse town. I went to college in Chicago, which is highly segregated, but still diverse, and then being in New York for 7 years and then going and working every day in this small town where like you couldn't even really find places in the town to go for lunch, so it was a very different atmosphere. And then of course, having students who were from similarly small towns, that was part of the draw of the college, that it was a small college where you didn't have to go into Philadelphia because Philadelphia was scary. And why would anyone go there? And adapting to that and really seeing a place that on several levels was just like failing at diversity, as we like to call it, diversity and inclusion, which it never is, but like really failing at racial equity.
Yeah, definitely.
So being there, and I guess, in retrospect, it's always funny how surprised I was, because now I'm like, why were you surprised? But I was like, how can this be? Like, we're supposed to know better, blah, blah, blah. And no one knew, like a handful of people knew better, of course, but just, pervasive incidents on campus, even the way faculty spoke about race, it just kind of felt like being in a different, like you took a parachute and you landed somewhere and you're like, where am I?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's going on? Like, how did I land here?
Right.
So thinking about that and thinking about how hard I'd worked to get my PhD, and, I think having that moment that a lot of people do where it's like, I worked really hard for this, and this is bullshit.
Yeah.
So thinking to myself, like, if I work this hard and this PhD is this valuable to me, like, do I want to be in an environment where, my department isn't particularly supportive of me?
Mm-hmm.
There's a campus atmosphere where issues of racial equity are kind of always brushed aside.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's kind of forgiven. Everything's attributed to just like individual foolishness or like individual malice without kind of looking at the structural issues. Then, of course, as a sociologist who studies race, I'm like even more incensed about this. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
So as a Black woman and then as a person who studies race, I'm like, what is happening here?
Right.
And trying to be an advocate, and then, of course, that going nowhere. As many people know, you're like, that's not a surprise. I remember serving, there was a hate crime on our campus, and I served on a diversity committee, and we did all of this work, and the story will sound so familiar to people. Did all of this work, a semester's worth of work, wrote a report, did all of this stuff, incredibly time-consuming labor, and our compensation was $250. And the new leadership came into the university and said that they didn't think that we would go in the right direction if we focused all of our equity issues on racial disparities.
So I'm just like, $250 is like more insulting than not paying you, in my opinion.
Exactly. I mean, that's kind of the way I felt. I was like, what are you talking about? But this
and then we'll dismiss. You did all of that work and we're dismissing. Like,
thank you for your service. God. Here you go. And that was one of the points where I was like, this is not it.
Yeah.
Like, this just isn't it. This isn't what I signed up for. This isn't going anywhere. It's like beating your head against the wall. It's like, well, we did all this work and then you're going to come in and be so dismissive of it. And then this is our compensation, like this paltry, like,
no.
Are we allowed to curse on this podcast?
You are. Yes, you are.
This is like, fuck you money, right? Like, that's what it is. So
yes.
I'm just like, this is offensive. Like, why would you do this? And why would you do this to a junior scholar? Like, who's so early in their career, and you're asking them to take on this laborious process of doing all this work and then being so dismissive of it. So I was just like, I really need to think about what to do. So that was the point where I was like, I should start applying to other places. And it was an intensive teaching college, so I wasn't publishing a ton. And I was like, well, where do I want to go? If I could go somewhere, like, where would it be? What should I do?
Mm-hmm.
And I just realized, I was like, you can go somewhere else and it could be just as bad or worse.
Yeah.
And that's really when I was like, okay, what am I really going to do? Because, and it's not to say that everything there was awful, because it wasn't. Like, I had students who were amazing. I had my most important mentor of my career there, but there were a lot of things that were not amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And you deserve amazing.
Yeah. And we all do. We all deserve amazing.
Yes.
So the question became, you're not going to be able to like outrun this or outwork this.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go somewhere else, and then what's going to happen?
Right.
So I'm like, if I'm going to go somewhere else, I'm going to go back to the place that I want to be, which is New York.
Mm-hmm.
So I took a fellowship that gave me like a kind of, more graceful, as they say,
Yeah.
transition to kind of, take a fellowship that's still associated with an academic institution. I mean, an academic foundation rather, and use that so that if I change my mind during the course of this fellowship, like maybe I can position myself to go back on the market.
Right. Yeah.
So that was my initial plan. And then we got back to New York and I was like, I'm not going to leave New York again. I'm not going to leave for some type of uncertainty. Right. Like if I'm going to have a job where it's not, it's not like racism only exists in the academy, right? Like it exists everywhere. So I'm like, if I'm going to have a job where there's a very high chance that this is going to be what I endure, then I'm going to do it in a place I like. I'm going to do it close to my family. And I'm going to do it in a city I love. So let's just stay in New York. So I took the fellowship and there were certain things about academia that I missed because it was a public, it's the ACLS fellowship. It's called Public Fellows. Yeah. And, I was at a nonprofit and I was doing research there and it was exciting and interesting, but I kind of missed the things that I initially loved about academia, right? Like the exchange of ideas, the discussion. So I was like, let me figure out how I can do this. And I knew nothing about like alt-ac, post-ac. Like I didn't know what those words meant. Like I was not tapped into those networks.
Right.
Like I had no idea.
Right.
So at that point I was like, well, what can I do that would be fun? Like a job that's fun that I can do now. So that's when I decided to start my own business. So I was like, I'll be an editor. Right. And so I started, like reaching out to people who I went to grad school with or like people I knew from, my job and going through those channels to be like, hey, like this is when I'm going to start. Can I talk to you, just about anything you would need help with your writing? And I had a few very generous friends in the beginning who were like, yes, I'll come on as your client. And I started doing it and I loved it. And I just started hustling the way people hustle to grow a business, trying different things out and, different marketing, like who can I reach? What type of editing do I like to do? Like what courses do I need to take to like learn how to edit? Who are other editors? So, and kind of just like networking and hustling. And that was in 2014. So that was 6 years ago almost. And I just started building and then the editing kind of evolved into the coaching. Yeah. And that's where I'm at now is with majority of my work is coaching. And then I have 2 courses that I have.
Nice. Okay. So I want to hear all about that, but I have a couple questions about this transition out because I think like one of the reasons that I wanted to do this series of interviews, I just hear so much from people that they'll be like, well, I had this non-traditional path through academia or this thing. And this idea that there's like a traditional path and it ends in like, I don't know what, you dying in the tenure track job, like.
Yeah. You're like at your desk and you're just at your desk forever.
Literally. But like, I mean, there's an idea, like, because of that, what I really think of as like a scarcity mindset in academia that we're like ingrained with from when we're in grad school, especially like scarcity of money, scarcity of time, scarcity of jobs. And we're like, fear, fear, fear. This idea of like, whatever job you get, you have to take, you got to apply for all the jobs because scarcity, scarcity, scarcity. So then when someone exits, I think there's like a lot of questions. Like people are like, what? Why would you got the gold ring, the tenure track job. So, So did you deal with that in terms of like your academic and non-academic circles?
Yes, definitely. And I think there was a moment in grad school, and I'll start there, where I definitely considered not going on the job market at all. Like I was like, I don't know about this. It feels very uncertain. Yeah. Like, I'm just not sure. And it was a little bit of imposter syndrome, but it was also just a little bit of dread. Like, is this what I want to do with my whole life? Right. And I remember talking to a faculty member who was a confidant and a very good, I consider them a good friend at NYU. And they told me, don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone you're thinking this because they'll stop working with you. And I was scared. I was like, I better not tell anyone. I better. And they weren't saying it to be mean. It wasn't a threat. It was concern.
Right.
It was concern. Like it wasn't like it was not a mean thing. It's not a lie. Like we know that from looking across academia, it's not a lie. So I knew that if I wanted to be an academic, I had to go on a job market immediately. Because that's what you do. Like,
right.
You can't take 2 years off and then be like, hey guys, I'm back. Like everyone would be like, but no, you can't do that. So when I went on the job market, I was like a little conflicted, but it just felt like this is what you do. Like you go and you be a professor. And again, like there were a lot of things I liked about, I like teaching. Yeah. I like students and I like research, but I did feel like if you don't do it now, that's it.
Yep. Well, that's the story that we're told. If you leave or if you adjunct, which since getting a tenure track job is hard, many people adjunct and some of them go on to get tenure track jobs. But this idea, like if I adjunct, I'll never get a tenure track job. Or if I do X, then Y will never happen is, I think, so ingrained in academic culture. And it is scary.
It's very scary. It's very scary. So when I got my job, of course, everyone's like, oh my God, you got a job on the first try, blah, blah, blah. Like, so great. So amazing. You get to live in a city you like you didn't have to go somewhere far. This was all great. So then I was like, it's actually not all great. Like some of it's great, but like most of it's not great. And, just dealing with that but also feeling like, I don't know if I should complain so much. Like I have friends who don't have any job, right? Like I have friends who finished and, are like stringing a postdoc together, or like going back on the market for like the second time. And, like I have a job that by all accounts, like pays well, like the teaching load wasn't absurd. Like from the outside, it was a pretty cushy job.
Right.
Like it was a private institution. I was able to live in a place I wanted to live, so in that way, it definitely felt like you can't be like too mad about this,
But you can't.
You get what you get and you don't get upset, right?
Right.
Like we learned in preschool.
Right. And like you should just be happy and stay quiet and like just be.
Yeah, like people would kill to have this job. Like, like you're, and I'm like, well, someone else is going to get it because I'm going to leave it. So, okay, like. Yeah. So there was definitely some of that. And then I remember when I decided to leave. I decided to leave and I was also getting married. So I got married and we both moved back to New York. And I laugh thinking of it. So many people who were on my campus were like, oh, well, you're getting married and you're going back to New York for your husband's job.
In 2015 or whenever it was.
In 2013. Like, okay. Oh, yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing.
That's it. And I'm just like, if that's what you want to think what you want, because I'm not going to.
Wow.
You guys have already proven who you are. So I'm not going to like get into this with you.
Yeah.
And there was some of that. There was some of the like, oh, you're going back because your husband works there.
Wow.
And I'm like, yes, because I have zero agency and choice of my own. And I just do what my husband tells me to do. Like, okay.
So it's like a little bubble. And it's not a bubble because I think it's probably pretty common. But like it's like being back in time.
Yeah. No, it was like taking a time machine. So, there was some of that. And then there was some of the, oh, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do now? Like, there's nothing you can do besides be a professor. Like, well, now what are you going to do? I'm like, I'm just going to lay on my couch, I think.
Right. I'm going to
TBD. Like, TBD, I'm just going to lay on my couch. So there was a lot of that. I think taking the fellowship really helped with some of that because people were able to rationalize it in their mind. It's like, oh, you're still doing something prestigious, and you're still doing something in academia because this is, like an academic society.
Right.
So that really, I think, eased it for me.
Yeah.
Not for me, well, for me too, but also like for other people who didn't know what to make of it.
Right.
They were like, oh, okay, she's taking a fellowship. Like, okay. People take fellowships. Like that seems. So then when I left the fellowship and started my own business, I think that's when I kind of got the why? Like, why? You had the golden ticket and you left it. Like, can you tell me why? Like, why? So many whys. And I'm like, because I fucking felt like it. Like, that's why, So, and it's not to say that I don't get it. Like, I get it. You work for this one thing for so long and you were taught that it is the only thing. But I think there is a difference in being a first generation college student and also in being a Black woman. There was, even though I kind of saw a natural trajectory, I did not believe that, like, I'm going to get that faculty job. I'm going to do this. Like, you kind of always have a plan B, because you know how it goes.
Right.
So my idea, like, was never that if I don't get a professor job, like, I won't know what to do. It was like, well, I might not, like, I don't know what's going to happen. So like, I'm going to have to figure it out either way. Like, I just have to figure it out. And I think that there's a point where, let me think about how to say this. There was a point where when I was starting my business, where I was like, I don't want to keep like giving my power to other people. Like, if I'm going to mess things up, I'm going to mess them up.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to do it myself because, and this is what I learned, like being at, an institution as a faculty member, like, you think you have a lot of freedom and you don't.
Yes. I relate to that 100%.
Like you don't, like, and I was pretty closely monitored, like if I wasn't in the office every day, there was a question. If I left on Fridays, to do research at home or like work, that was questioned, like I didn't feel like I had, that kind of life of the mind opportunity.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that I was doing everything I was supposed to do. Like I was teaching my classes, I was having my office hours, my reviews were, as fine as they could be. And there were still questions all the time. So I was like, well, what is this? Like, this is not the way it looks. This is not the way it is at NYU, where everyone's allowed to, like, go in their offices and retire away and write.
Yeah.
Like, that's not this. And of course, again, like, that's partially naivete, but it's also like, I can maybe create a little bit of that for myself. And it's not to say that a business is like this walk in the park, because it's not. It's hard. It's hard work. And I, probably work harder in some ways, or at least when I first started my business, I definitely did.
Yep.
But it was also like, no one's checking in on me to see if I'm in my office. No one's asking me to serve on a bullshit committee. That's going to be like toothless. Like, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it because I want to. And if I don't do it, I'm going to accept the consequences of not doing it. And that's going to be on me. So that felt way more empowering to me than any time I was ever in academia.
Yes. Like, and another thing too, like, I think that's important, like in that idea or the illusion of freedom inside of academia, like even things that we don't consider or that we may not consider to be kind of oppressive things, but are just structures, right? So like a syllabus that has to look this way. And if it's going to be 3 credits, you have to do this, this many contact hours. You have to be in your office for students at the, all of those things, which are, like, nobody's going to, like, very few people would be like, screw those rules of 3 credit hour, like they know that, like, this is part of, like, the students pay a fee and you got to give them this much stuff. Right. one of the things I love about being in business is to be able to say, like, I don't have any of those constraints. So if I want to teach something, I can teach it exactly the way that I want to teach it. It could be 3 hours long. It could be 30 hours long. It could be this, it could be that. It's like this kind of creative freedom that I think you have inside of academia a lot, but that you don't really, or that very few people, or like maybe in an institution like NYU, you get like closer to that. But in a lot, I don't know, like that was one of the things for me. That was one of the empowering things about being an entrepreneur, is just like, I can create whatever the hell I want, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it does work, good on me. And if it does work, I'm going to actually get paid more, which is not part of academia either, right? Like the better you do, the more work you do and the less you get paid actually.
Yeah. And I mean, I think if people calculated like their hourly rates, they would be sad, and
100%.
and that's a structural problem of academia. You know, like we undervalue it. We don't fund it the way it should. Like it's not publicly funded the way it should be, especially in the US. Like, so that is a huge issue. And I had the privilege of being able to go and start my own business. Not everyone has that. I was able to do that. And I was able to do it in part because I was married, so,
Me too. Yep.
And that's part of that. So I don't want to begrudge people who are in academia. Of course, like we all, I know that's not what you're doing, but like, I just want to make sure to like, everyone is working in really complex structures and making the best decisions they can with the resources that they have.
Right.
And alongside of that, there is a narrative that if you leave academia, you must be a failure or a punk in some way. You're like, why would you turn this down? Even though we all know what it is, like, why would you walk away from this?
Right.
This is, you had it and you left it. Like, why would you do that? And I'm like, why do you need an account of it? Like, nobody ever asks people why they stay. You're like, why do you stay in academia? Knowing what you know. Like the question is always, why do you leave?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, outside of academia, people leave jobs all the time.
Yep.
And people change careers. It's not that bizarre that a person would change careers. Like I went to college with a lot of people who got law degrees and don't practice law.
Yes.
And no one ever asks them, like, why did you leave private practice? It's such a golden ticket,
Yeah.
And I would argue that private practice has some of the same elite and oppressive structures as academia, but that's a different podcast. But, like no one ever asks them like, well, why did you leave law? It's just like, oh, you took your law degree and like went and did something cool. That's so cool. And I get that, not everyone is like, you're a person who made a bad decision. Like,
right.
There are a lot of my friends from academia who have been incredibly supportive of my business, like so supportive. But I do think there is a narrative of why would you leave?
Right. Yeah, no, I think so too. And I think that that's something like the reason I wanted to ask you about that and the reason I wanted to talk about it is so that people who are listening can understand that like this is a narrative. I refer to it as like this amorphous blob of like this culture of academia that tells you what the norms are and whatever. And that we should be questioning that more, both when we stay and when we leave. But also like, I don't know if you've noticed this and what your client base looks like, but I think that the newer generation of PhDs is much less tolerant of all the BS. I'm seeing people like who come in like fresh out. They're like, I'm going to do this program with you, but I don't even know if this is going to be for me because if this academia thing doesn't tick these boxes, I'm out. So I think there is some kind of generational shift that I'm feeling a little bit, but definitely like my generation was like, this is the thing that you do. And it looks like this. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that there's definitely more critique now. And I think that people are realizing the range of options. And I think going back to the idea of, I've been thinking about it, I've just been talking, like the idea of, why would you leave? You have a job. And And I think that ties into some of the alt act, like angst, like when people talk about alt angst, talk about the jobs they deserved to have, like I did everything right.
Right.
And I deserve to get this job and I don't have this job. And there is an implicit idea of fairness, which I think, like the system should be fair to me. Like I worked hard and I should get a job. And it should be.
Right.
Like system should be fair. But I think that is racialized because Black people were never taught that the system's fair for them. And I think that's why some of the alt act narrative like never resonated with me because I never felt that way.
Yeah.
Like I never felt that everything would be fair. I just didn't feel that way. And then, but when you look at it on the surface, it's like, well, you got the job, like you worked hard and you got the job. And I'm like, yeah, but I didn't get the job that I deserved because I deserved the job where people weren't racist. Absolutely. So it actually wasn't a meritocracy for me. Right. Even though it might have looked like one, so I think it's really important to think about that when we think about the narrative of like, why would you leave?
Yes.
Like you got this thing. It's great. If I had it, I wouldn't have left, and those narratives are racialized. Yeah. And we need to think about that when we think about why people stay, why people go.
Yeah. That's so good. Thank you for saying that on my podcast. Yes. I think it's gonna like a lot of people are gonna go, oh, like it's gonna hit people like a ton of bricks, which is great. So let's talk about what you're doing now. So like maybe we could take a second and talk about editing versus coaching.
I love editing.
Yeah. I love coaching. So tell me about like what's the difference between an editor and a coach for you, and how have you kind of changed? Now you're leaning more towards coaching, whereas you started out as editing.
Okay. So first I'll talk about how I started leaning into coaching. So I was editing with clients and, editing in terms of like polishing their prose. I need 1,000 words cut from this manuscript. Like, I'm not sure if my argument is strong enough. Am I using enough evidence? Am I not using enough evidence? And that's all on the developmental editing side. Yeah. And then more of the copy editing. Like, can you just make sure that the grammar is correct, that things are formatted nicely for the journal, and can you just like clean up some of these sentences that sound a little clunky, so that's the copy editing. So, and I was doing a mix of both, although I had moved more into developmental editing, pretty quickly. I had a great mentor, Audra Wolf, and she helped me become a developmental editor.
Nice.
So what I noticed was that my clients were never getting me their work on time. And I was like, what is happening? Like, this is like a business problem for me. And also, obviously a source of angst for them because they're sending me these emails. Like I said, I would get it to you today. It's nowhere near done. I need more time. And then I need more time. So I started asking them, I'm like, well, what's taking so long? And I knew it was taking so long because I knew it was taking me so long, but like, I wanted to hear them, I wanted to talk to them about it. Yeah. And it was like, I thought I'd be able to finish it in this amount of time, but I needed twice as much time as I thought. Or, this thing blew up on campus. Like I had to put out all these fires, we all know it. Yep. And I didn't have time to get to my work. And it was kind of the same issues over and over. And I was like, this sounds like something that needs an intervention. Like as a sociologist, I was like, I'm noticing patterns, like basically. I'm a sociologist and I see a pattern. It's like, when you're a hammer, everything's a nail. But, I'm like, I'm seeing, like, I hear the same things over and over. So what can I do? What can I do to help them? Because like I said, like it was a problem in terms of them feeling awful. And it was a business problem because I'm like, I'm not getting paid because people aren't getting me work. Yeah. So it's like a problem on two levels. So I started developing the coaching where I'm like, well, would you be interested in having like a conversation about how to do this? So I started, offering coaching, like kind of ad hoc, like, let's just have a couple of sessions and talk through what's going on or like help you organize your time better. And then I began to systematize it more. And my first flagship program was the productivity pipeline, which is still my baby, but it's a 6-month program. It's one-on-one coaching. And we talk a lot about those mindset issues, about those high level, like not even high level, but kind of essential productivity questions. Like if I have to write this book in a year, and this is what my teaching load is, and this is what I'm doing at home with my family, and then I have all these other obligations, like when the hell am I going to write this book?
Yeah.
So doing that level of project management
Mm-hmm.
and helping people figure out that like a lot of the times you're getting in your own way because you're saying yes to too many things.
Mm-hmm.
You're not standing up for yourself at work.
Mm-hmm.
And you are consistently just like having this really rosy view of your time. Like, of course I'm going to be able to write that chapter in 2 weeks. It's like, no, you're not. So let's talk about what's going to happen instead, and it ends up being a hybrid of like productivity coaching, but also I think a lot of my clients would say like life coaching, like
Totally,
Jane's really tough. Like she gives a lot of tough love.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently I drag people according to my clients, which I love hearing that. But, kind of really helping people think about what do I want my academic life to look like? Like, I don't want to be writing until midnight every night. I don't want to be waking up on Saturday mornings and writing. I don't want to be sick with back problems because I've been sitting in my chair for too long.
Yep.
I don't want this life. Okay, so if you don't want that life, what do we need to do for that to change? So it becomes about the time, but it becomes about so much more than the time.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
The time is just what exposes it.
Right.
I don't have enough time. That's the problem that you come with. And then it exposes everything else. I let my co-writer treat me like shit. I say yes to way too many things on campus, and I want to do all of them, but I also have to be realistic that I can't do all of them.
Right.
And those are hard questions, so having someone outside of the academy to kind of work through some of that with you, who also knows what's going on.
Yeah.
Is really powerful for people because you often don't have someone on campus who you can go to with that.
Yes, you do not. And I think that's the beauty of coaching, right? Is that you're like this outside, you're not in the department. You have no stake in what this person does next, except that you want them to be successful because they paid you to help them,
Exactly.
But yeah.
Exactly. And because I want the support that like I didn't have. I didn't have coaching when I was on the tenure track. I had mentoring, but I didn't have anyone who's like, okay, Jane, you want to write this article? Like, what are we going to do? Like, you need to say no to this diversity committee. Because it's not going to go anywhere and it's going to be a waste of your time, or, you need to ask more questions before you agree to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then allowing the person, of course, to make an informed decision. I'd say I'm a little more prescriptive of a coach than some others, just because, your tenure time is short.
Yeah.
Some of coaching is like, well, let me help you discover like what you need to do and what you need to figure out. And I think that's really important. But I think that if you're in year 3 on a tenure track and you have to write a book, we do not have time for that whole journey. So sometimes it becomes prescriptive. Like, no, you cannot say yes to that. You have no, you can't.
Yeah. I want to hear more about the narrowing, a little bit of narrowing at least, right, to specifically book stuff. Because I'm working on a book. It's not an academic book. It's a book about about the kinds of coaching and stuff that we do, right? But I've always been intimidated by the idea of writing a monograph. So I have like a couple of edited collections. And so like the process of doing that and the process of getting published that way and all of that, like that was not scary to me. Writing this thing that is like long and whatever, and only me is scary to me. So can you talk a little bit about like the kinds of work you do specifically as like a book coach?
Yeah. And that's actually my new program. I know is going on about productivity pipeline, but my new program is Elevate, and that's my book coaching program. And that actually is a coaching developmental editing hybrid.
Nice.
So we call it a mastermind for book writers. And, in my one-on-one coaching, so many book writers find me. I'm a qualitative sociologist by training. So it makes sense. And a lot of book writers find me, and so many of the mindset issues they have become writing issues. Like, I feel scared about my writing, so I'm going to write in this way that is very wooden, and like I'm going to oversight, and I'm going to put too many examples in my chapters, and kind of all of these things that as a developmental editor and a coach, you're like, I could see those things really quickly. Like, is this chapter 30,000 words because you're scared that if you don't say all of this, like a reviewer is going to ding you for something,
Right. Mm-hmm.
you know, so kind of like getting at that connection and then also giving people developmental editing support way earlier in the process than they normally would get it. So I think we have this system in editing where you finish your book manuscript or like you finish 3 chapters and then you send them out.
Yep.
And then you get them back and they have a ton of comments and it's like red ink everywhere. You know, like not real red ink, but you know, so many comments. You're like, oh my God, I have to start from scratch. What is this? And Elevate, one of the things is that we look at your writing at every single stage. So you don't get to that point where you're like, I just birthed this book of, you know, 100,000 words. And now I have to go back to the drawing board, you know, not that bad, but like, I feel like I have to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
We try to eliminate that because it's a 6-month program where you're getting a lot of early intervention. So it's like, let me see your outline. Let me see your proposal. Let me see like your topic sentences and let me talk to you about them. Like, let me coach you through this. Like you're having this writing issue or this productivity issue, you know, like it's taking way longer than you thought. Or for instance, you know, one person needed to tell an acquisitions editor like how much time they needed for their revisions. And they were like, I wouldn't have been able to give them a good time if I hadn't looked through your course first and figured out how much time I needed. And how many people ghost their editors?
A lot.
Hide from their acquisitions editors because they're like, I'm not done. I told them I'd have it and I don't have it.
Right.
Because I had totally unrealistic time estimates. And it's not their fault because no one teaches you how to do any of this.
No one teaches you how to do any of it. That's right. So who is the ideal person to do that program? Like somebody who has a book idea or somebody who has something written or somebody who has a contract or like you have people coming in at all stages?
I have people coming in at all stages. So I have a couple of people who, you know, are finishing up a postdoc, like have the idea, you know, but don't have a ton written. And then I have some people who are like, I have most of my manuscript written. Like, you know, I'm starting my revision process. Like I've had a book workshop or like I've had my first round of reviews and I'm revising. So it's really for people who want, and it's not all first book writers.
Oh, good.
Which is funny because that's the way I envisioned it. And that, of course, is like a good thing to learn about any business or any project, right? Like you envision it one way and then it turns out different and it's still amazing.
Yes.
You know, so it's for people who want support and don't know where to get it for their book, like want sustained support. So we help you at every stage of the writing process. If you have a bunch of revisions and you're like, I need to make sense of these, then that's what we're going to do. You know, if you're like, I have an outline, I don't know how to fill it out, there's a part of it for that. It really is about what is the next step you need to take to get this book on the bookshelf. Like that's our goal in Elevate. Like you may not get it on the bookshelf while you're in the program, but that's our goal. Like I want to see that book on a bookshelf. So that's kind of what we are driven by.
Yeah. So I just want to go back, like we're almost out of time, but a couple of more questions about this because I'm just, because I'm in my, you know, my book thing. And also because, you know, I work a lot with early career scholars as well. So like that person who's in year 3 of the tenure track and is like, I got to get a book out. Like what is a realistic timeline for someone to write an academic book? Like if you're going to tell, because I know I got a lot of PhD students listening to this podcast. Or a lot of people who are early career listening. So maybe you want to give them a little bit of Jane Jones, like dose of reality.
Okay. So I'll tell you the worst case scenario and the best case scenario. Great. So the worst case scenario, and this is one that I see too often that I don't like, is someone comes to me and they're like, I have 6 months to write my book. And I have my dissertation. You know, I published 1 or 2 articles, but now all of this needs to become a book.
Yeah.
You can do it in 6 months and it will be awful. But you can do it. And if you're in year 3 or year 4, that's what you should do if you need a physical book. If you need a physical book in your hands for tenure and you think that that process, you know, which people often don't think closely about of it becoming a physical book, like it getting a cover, it getting indexed, it getting paginated, you know, like all of that, that could be to a year at some places.
Yep.
You know, so you want to be super conservative about how much time you need. So 6 months is the worst.
Okay.
It's the doable worst, I think.
Right. Mm-hmm.
From what I've seen. From what I've seen with clients. The best is that you're in year 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, okay, like I'm in conversations with some acquisitions editors. I don't have I may not have a manuscript yet, but like I have this kind of idea and this structure.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're like, okay, let's go. Because then you're going to have about 2 years to write your book.
Yeah.
That's really nice, especially if you're teaching, which most people are, so whenever people ask me how much time they need, I ask them, well, what are you doing?
Yes.
Are you teaching a 2-3? Do you have a sabbatical? Do you have kids? Like what's everything that's happening? Because, it's really hard to say. I always say it depends. Like if you are a person who can sit down and write for 5 hours a day,
right,
5 days a week, then you're probably going to be able to write your book in a good, in a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's with getting some feedback along the way. Like maybe sending a chapter out, presenting, et cetera, et cetera. Most people do not have that.
No.
And that's assuming everything goes well. Like the ideas are flowing.
Right.
You're writing consistently. You don't get stumped. Like you don't have to go back to the drawing board for anything. And those are all natural things. Like we make them strange. We're like, oh my God, I had to rewrite this chapter. It was awful. Like, no, that's actually what happens when you write a book and it's fine.
Yeah.
You just have to give yourself time to do it.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. The 6 months, if you were able to clear the decks, like you'd have to clear a lot.
Oh yeah, that's 6 months of like you are writing probably 5 days a week, doing retreats. And like I've done this with clients because sometimes people have no choice, and it's like they're writing for 5 hours a day every day. And then along those 6 months, they're probably a 3-day weekend writing retreat, like once a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've done it with people with children, without children. But you have to rearrange your life.
Yeah.
And of course, if that's what's going to get you tenure, although now, who knows what gets you tenure, but, if you have to do it, that's what you have to do. And in my experience of working with people. And like I said, like it is awful. Yep. It's not fun. And, like the book's going to be done and you may not love it at the end, but it will be done.
Right.
Like we can march you through it.
Right.
But if you're that person, you need one-on-one coaching.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's not the person I tell to come to Elevate. Cause I'm like, this is too intense and you need like intensive one-on-one work.
Yeah. And that one-on-one, I think people underestimate how much faster you can go when you have one-on-one support. And so, that would be a good option for somebody who was on a tight timeline. All right. You heard it here, everyone who's thinking about writing a book. Get your calendars out. Figure it out. So Jane, tell us about where we can find out more about you. Are you on the interwebs?
I am on the interwebs. So you could find me at Jane Joann on Twitter. JaneJoann. That's the easiest way to find me. My website is upinconsulting.com. And Elevate will reopen for registration in August.
Awesome.
And of course, my newsletter is the best place to go. If you go on my blog, if you go on my website, it's easy to find me, and that's where you get.
Yeah.
If you want to hear me rant even more, sign up for my newsletter because that's where you get the real good stuff.
Awesome. Yay. Well, Jane, this has just been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
We will link up all your places and things in the show notes. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you, Kathy. Thanks for having me.
Yay. Thank you for spending your valuable time investing in yourself and your career by listening to this episode. If you'd like to continue the conversation, join the over 13,000 academic women and non-men folks in the I Should Be Writing Facebook group. Just go to facebook.com/groups/I Should Be Writing or search for I Should Be Writing inside your Facebook app. See you inside.